even if you don't do politics, politics is doing you. All the time. You don't exist in a world where politics is not influencing every single interaction that you're having. Every single interaction. So you should get in the game. And then I like this football analogy because I think it's a good way to explain, if you play in football, you can't throw a Hail Mary on every play, right? Like, you're just trying to get a first down. And like, we can critique that, but that's how the game is played. It is played inch by inch. And right now, like, we have an opportunity to go get a first down.
You know there needs to be a clearer line from the politician to the people.
We have to advocate for policies that make it easier for women to thrive.
We are America, right? We are the cornerstones of this country.
The thing I'm excited about when I look at Vice President Harris and what she's talking about, she has real policy proposals.
You know, as a black person, I'm just an individual. But as black people, it's about our community.
Shout out to BD for hosting us at Slick Studios. Shout out to Blavity for putting this together. I'm super blessed and excited to have this opportunity to sit with, you know, so many great minds and so many young minds in this field who people probably wouldn't even expect to have this type of conversation or have a voice in this. And first and foremost, we gotta say thank you to BD for opening space to us.
Appreciate you, BD.
But most of all, to, you know, the whole Blavity team for even, you know, feeling that it's important for black men's voice to be heard on this. So clap it up for that. Clap it up for that. All right, let's we know what we're here for. We know we are, you know, at a precipice for a super important. I know they say every election is the most important election, but I feel like specifically this one is an extremely important election, and you want to be on a side of history, hopefully the right side, but you gotta be on the side. So, you know, it meant the world to me for us to be able to get together and have this conversation about just, you know, black men's support, black men's vote, and overall, you know, how we view Ms. Harris and then, you know, her legendary run for presidency. All right, get into it?
Let's do it, brother.
I wanna open up just asking you guys, just as black men in the community moving around successful, what are some of the issues that matter the most to y'all when it comes to an election?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start, man. So, you know, there's a political strategist, James Carville, 92 when Bill Clinton run.
Yes, sir.
His famous phrase is the economy's stupid. And so when I think about myself as a black man and I talk to other black men that I know, and the discourse that I'm seeing, it really comes down to the economy. And there's a lot of discourse this election, and there was in 2020, about what's the plan for black America, what's the plan for black men. And I think that it's very, very important to note that any plan for black men and any plan for black people must lead with the economy. When I hear a politician or any political campaign lead with criminality, criminal justice, or our proximity to it, like that's their lead, then to me that's a red flag. Like, yes, criminal justice reform, prison reform, all those things are important to black people because we are disproportionately affected by those issues. But at the end of the day, what we care about is what every American cares about. We care about, are we going to be able to have the opportunity to generate wealth, to create generational wealth, to live beyond paycheck to paycheck? And so that's where any plan for that has to start.
We have to do a better job of asking what we want. The money and the resources should be applied to the right hands. And then you start talking about criminal justice and shit like that, because now, you know, the people closer to the problems are closer to the solutions, but they're the ones that are always, you know, underfunded. You know, like, look at Blavity. Blavity is killing shit. Black media, you know what I mean? Like, underfunded. You know what I mean? The government should be giving Blavity $100 million just to like cover this goddamn election. You know what I mean? And so for us, like, we gotta start making sure like the right money going to the right people, and those right people, they gonna take care of the next class, and then the next class got some residue left for, you know, the lower class, but then you start seeing opportunity. And every time that there's an election, nobody talks about economic opportunity, you know, or even sustainability, you know.
For me, it's about what's important to my family and my community, right? I think a lot of time, for example, like HBCU funding, right? That's college is has been in America a way to advance yourself, right? Certain jobs you don't have to be smarter to get, but a college degree is an easy separator of who can get it, who cannot get this job, right? I got my first good job at Boeing. You had to have a college degree to get that. And I remember doing the job, and no disrespect to Boeing, but I was like, I could have done this job when I was 19. Like, it was nothing, no disrespect, but it's like, there's nothing inherently that I learned in college to do this job. So I was talking to my boss, I was like, why do we have to have that? They was like, we don't want to do a whole bunch of applications for people who don't have college. You know how many applications we have to go through? And I was like, that's it?
That explains the door.
Yeah. So it's like, but you know, for my family to get me through college, it was loans, it was grants. It was my dad being like, brother, all I can offer you is this house to live in. I can't help you. And I was like, but the school said you got to pay. He's like, school gonna come in my pocket? You know what I'm saying? So I'm telling you, what I can offer you is you can live in this house, you can eat. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. You ain't gonna come get it. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So I'm going to school with kids who, you know, and then I'm still doing work study, right? I'm riding the bus back and forth. These kids they don't have to think about none of that stuff. They got laptops, they got the full lunch card, $37.50. They can eat whatever they want. Chicken tenders, you got ice cream, $37.50. I got $7. I get one meal, and I got to choose lightly. You know what I'm saying? So, and that was a lot of the experience of all the black kids at a PWI. And now you have this administration, you know, Joe Biden did it, and Kamala Harris has promised to continue. It's like, we're going to not overfund, but we're going to extremely invest in HBCUs, where previous administrations haven't done that and don't plan on doing that. And that's just one thing. Then you talk about her plan for helping first-time home buyers, right? In the black community, we haven't had years of opportunities to own houses. A lot of us are the first homeowners or second homeowners. Our parents weren't able to leave us land. Imagine your family's owned land and houses for 100 years. You have wealth that you haven't had to do any work for, you know? So, you know, I own my house now because of a program that allowed you to get one with 0% down. And the other thing people don't talk about, a lot of people can afford a home, like the price of a mortgage, but they can't afford the down payment to get the mortgage. So what happens is you have a business that owns, you know, the apartment they rent, and you can just keep pricing them up and up and up and up and up, and they can't really do anything about it. Whereas a home, once you get in there, that price stays there. Your equity grows. You can refinance that. Now you have some equity to invest in a business. So something as simple as that can change the trajectory of your entire family's life. So I want to vote for somebody who makes that easier for everybody in my community to do things like that, as opposed to keeps us away from things like that, and we continue to have unequal access to, you know, home ownership, equity, economic growth.
I think y'all are right. It's about small business and making sure that we have an opportunity to, like, yes, start, but also scale businesses, right? I think a lot of the conversation has been about, well, we need to see businesses start. And like, that's correct. But there's two numbers, y'all, that I've seen recently that have been haunting me. So the first number is that 96% of black-owned businesses don't employ anybody, right? So if you just think about that, like, it's incredible the number of companies that we have in our community that just do not have a single member of the team. That has to change, right? We have to be, we have to have somebody in office that understands that problem. I'm from Atlanta. The other number, this is super local, but 45% of black folks in Atlanta have delinquent debt. Not debt, delinquent debt. Like owe money to somebody that's behind right now.
Right.
We have to be thinking about different interventions to make sure that folks have opportunities to grow and build wealth. I mean, it just, we can't sustain where we are right now. And the thing that I'm excited about when I look at Vice President Harris and what she's talking about, she's discussing things in a different way and putting real policy proposals on the table. That is one thing that we can't allow to continue to happen in this conversation. She has real policy proposals. There were a couple of weeks where people were like, well, where's the policy? Where's the policy? Well, one, we forgot that, like, the campaign was like 5 days old when that conversation was happening. But two, like, she's only been doing one thing her whole life, which has been serving people. Right? So she has plenty of policy proposals, but I think it's about business, and I think it's about trying to figure out, especially for black men, how we have more opportunities to make some money.
Because as black men, you know, as typical black men, we kind of do take on the brunt. You know, we all, you know, I know for a fact, all of us got kids and got families that we're supporting. That goes into our mind, right? We're typically looked at as the breadwinner. We're the final say in the family. So it's like, how much of that goes into, into your political decision making?
No, for me, I'll say when I make a voting decision, I'm thinking about 3 constituencies. Yeah. First and foremost, I'm thinking about me and my family. 2, I'm thinking about my businesses and how policies are going to impact that. And then 3, I'm thinking about my employees and how they are going to be able to hopefully thrive or how they're going to be impacted by certain policies. And I recognize that it's a place of privilege for me to be able to have that broad view of things. But I personally don't just look and say like, yo, is this candidate going to lower my specific taxes? Because, I do want some lower taxes, but maybe lowering my taxes may actually disproportionately affect somebody else's taxes who needs that relief more. And so I think that ultimately you have to, I like to take that complete view, because the job of any president or any congressperson or any senator, I hope, is to make decisions that are on the whole going to create more opportunity broadly. Because there's a world where I'm not in the position that I'm in, right? Where I'm not an entrepreneur, where I'm not the co-founder of Blavity, where I'm not here, where I'm somebody that's living paycheck to paycheck, or I'm somebody that's got too much going on and I can't vote in the local election. And so I want to make sure that I'm creating a world for that person, because I could be in that position, or I could have been in that position.
I think empathy. I like that.
Yeah, I think the similar mindset is growing up with nothing and having nothing for the majority of my life, which it was not that long ago. I still think about what it was like, and that people are still like that, right? So although it might be in my financial interests to get this tax break or whatever, as a Black person, I'm just an individual. But as Black people, it's about our community. So I don't want to vote for something that might help me at the expense of y'all 4, right? Because it's like everybody eats, B. Not I eat. Everybody eats.
Good movie reference.
Yeah, I don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be in a position where I start thinking solely about myself, because then I start to think about interests that don't align with my community. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. Black people have been systematically and intentionally disenfranchised, right? The things that happen aren't because, we always get blamed for the things that happen to us. Right. Why we won't start no stuff? Black Wall Street was started. Right? Black people built a community in Oklahoma. Right. The Black Dollar was going Tulsa. For miles and miles, right? What happened to that? It was destroyed. And that's one town.
That's one town. That's just the
Philadelphia was bombed. They just got Winston-Salem. So it's not like we try. And think about the fear. If you built that community and the government and white people came and destroyed it, killed people, murdered, blew stuff up, set it on fire, what is the chance that you want to do that again? Or you tell your kids, start a business. And
then you pass that down.
You pass down fear because Black people, for the majority of our time in America, the only thing that we can think about is survival. So if you can have people always worried about surviving, they can't think about the 2 years.
You'll never thrive.
You can never think about
You'll never have to worry about thriving.
So you drown and why y'all don't vote? Nigga, I can't breathe. Literally, I can't. Help me out, I'm drowning now. I can't vote if I'm dead.
I cannot believe you are not getting out the water.
Right. So I think, it's easy to point the finger at us, but it's like, it's not like we chose this. It's not like we haven't fought against this. Like a government and people with unlimited resources have decided we got to make sure y'all don't do this, and still we're here thriving and stuff like that. So to me, that's why I vote community first. Obviously my family, but my community, because without my community, then my business will not thrive, because my business depends on Black people.
Even if you start doing really well individually, right? I think a lot of times we start talking about community as this like broad, nationwide thing that we've got to be trying to solve. But the problem exists in our own families. You can be doing as well as anybody. You're going to get to the Thanksgiving table, and statistically, there's going to be poverty at the table with you in your own family.
That's why food tastes so good. Sorry, my bad.
That's crazy.
I'm sorry.
But
all right.
But like,
you successful people here. That didn't know.
We ain't gonna struggle and be
That's why I can't make the mac and cheese.
But like,
they got that lobby in it.
Y'all know.
That's why we gotta have the funky pie, guys.
Y'all know. That's why though we can't get to this place of just being so trapped in this idea of success, because what really is that if your own family isn't good yet, right? I mean, like, we have a negative net worth almost as a community. So I don't see another way but to think about everybody, because everybody, when I say it that way, I'm thinking about like my cousins. I'm thinking about actual family.
The closest to us, and
yeah,
it spills out.
So this isn't, me trying to solve people who are thousands and thousands of miles.
Start your proximity.
I have to vote the interests of the people that I dine with every year.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I think that we can't lose sight of that. That's still, to me, super important.
Yeah, I think we're allergic to stability. And so we have all these allergies. Back to your point, it's like we're delinquent in pay. Like if we do have stability, we want to go up, right? We need to, the American dream, you know what I mean, was never our dream.
We were actually a part of someone else's.
Yeah,
we were a function of someone else's American dream.
We've just been in a dream, you know what I mean? Yeah. So we've been dreaming, which puts us in survival mode, right? And so you can only think about, how can I take care of myself? And when I take care of myself, I'm going to do all of this, And so the stability part is nobody wants to be okay. We have to be the American dream, or we have to struggle and be mad at the people who are stable. You know what I mean? And so the people in the middle, or the people on our level, we are placed in this American dream to compete with each other. And it's all because of, like, damn, you got some Gucci, you got to get some goddamn Balenciagas now, And so our culture pushes us to do unnecessary shit when we should have poured those resources back into stability and sustainability for the small businesses, the next entrepreneurial business, right? The next great talent, right? We're not building shit for ourselves and like no foundation. We just all over the place. So when I vote, I think about not just the community, but I'm thinking about the enterprise. Because if y'all can go, right? If y'all can be successful, right? Imagine how many jobs, you know what I mean? Absolutely. How many people that we can take care of, and then we can start mobilizing that shit locally.
For the first time in history, there's actual proposal of policy that supports and uplifts Black men, right? Actual policy that we could look at, and I have it printed up here, but like actual policy where we can, like you said, have something to hold them accountable for. Like you said this, you promised this, we delivered, we voted you in. This is what we need now, and we'll get into it a little deeper later on. But there are some specific points in here. But just as Black men, as successful business owners, and just path blazers, seeing this for the first time in history, as you get to vote, as you have an actual voice, have actual skin in the game, why do you think it took so long?
Well, I think for one, and this is politics and non-politics, I say this all the time, racism is a big problem everywhere. Yeah. Hollywood is in everywhere. But as big of a problem is nepotism, because nepotism doesn't feel like racism to the person making the decision. So we haven't had the, right? If I say I got a show, right? I got a comedy show, I'm gonna think about people who look like me. I'm gonna put Mouse on, Tony Baker, Tahir. I don't think of a white dude who I don't hang with, right? So Black people.
Yeah, I heard him say he's gonna put Mouse on.
Yeah, I got you. In theory.
Oh, okay. Politician.
Reverse real quick.
But like Blavity, for example, right? Blavity is a company that can say, okay, we have this opportunity. I'm gonna hire Kev, right? In years past, Black people haven't had companies or that opportunity. So in my career, a lot of my opportunities come from either Black people owning the companies or Black people with enough say-so that they can say this and nobody can say no, right? So in our lifetime, how often has a Black person been in a position of power that they can say something like this and nobody can say no, right? I'm 41. Before Obama won, I fully expected to die never seeing a Black president. It wasn't even a question or a thought. Like, this is just how America always had a white man in charge. I thought it was going. Listen, when Obama was first on the scene, I was like, they ain't gonna let that man be president. I was an old Black. They ain't gonna never let no Black man be president. Not this country. He ain't gonna make it. He ain't gonna make it. We thought he was gonna kill him. Right? So now that we've had Obama, we've had, Kamala's the first Black woman vice president, who could be the first woman president, period, but also Black woman. you know, now you have a real chance of somebody who can say, I'm going to look out for people who look like me. And that hasn't been the case. And honestly, the politicians didn't have to do it in the past.
Yeah, and so it's
didn't
not,
have
it's
to.
not, it's not only
Obama
a chance.
didn't have to do
Yeah.
it.
Well, it's not only
before
the chance,
Obama.
but it's the expectation now, because I think, Kev, to your point, the fact that we had President Obama, we had a black person before, was like, yo, if we could just get a seat at the table, we could just get the vice president, and then you get a black man elected. Now that expectation is, it's not enough to just get somebody that's black elected. It's like, no, like, we can do more than just hold the office, but like, can that office actually make movement, tangible movement that is going to impact our communities and the people we care about and the issues that we care about? And so I think it does speak to progress, right? Like, it's a shame that we're in 2024, and Mouse, to your point, it's like, this is the first time that, you know, it's a plan
It is
for-
still first.
It's
We're
still
in
the first, right?
2024 and they're
But-
still first.
But it is a testament to, you know, the fact that progress has been made. To Kel's point, like, you do have more black people in prominent positions who are starting businesses. Yes, to Ryan's point, like, they're single person businesses. We need to do more to make sure that those businesses can scale up. But you do have more black people in prominent positions. But I also want to make sure that we don't forget that there are still lots of black people who don't have the privilege of the Jack and Jill network or the access to power. So
it's just no infrastructure. So it don't matter who the president, what color they are. There's 96 independent black-owned businesses, and there should be 56, right? Because 10 people could have been hired in that pool. So we kind of like, we talk a lot of shit, you know what I mean? And all this shit is fluff, but there's no real aligned infrastructure. And so politicians are not experts, right? They're supposed to listen to what we say, do what we say they're supposed to do, and serve us, right? And so we're asking them to be smart, to develop a plan for us, you know what I mean? That we should be developing an infrastructure and a plan to go back to them and say, hey, bro, either sign it or don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck, excuse my language, bro, well, what the fuck are we waiting for politicians to write a plan for us and they don't even know us?
one thing that I would say, like, with the vice president's plan that I was encouraged by is that if you actually look at the plan, this plan for Black America, it's her plan, but she's talking about how it affects black men in Black America, right? It's not to say, this is what I'm gonna do for everybody else, but for black men, here's something that's different, because what's important about that is too often what we find with disengaged black men and black people in general is that there's this disconnect between what the government is doing and how it impacts me, right? The government is doing a lot of stuff. Like the Biden-Harris administration has passed some major bills, has done a lot of stuff. And people still have that disconnect. Well, what has Joe Biden done for me? What has Kamala Harris done for me? It's because they don't understand how these big initiatives that are being passed by Congress, that are being signed into law by the president, affect you. So I do like that what the vice president has done is said, here's my plan, here's my agenda, but let me say specifically why these things that I want to do overall are important for Black America.
This engagement piece is super important, and we don't talk about it enough. I look at politics like Uber Eats, right? I am sending out politicians to go like do things that I want them to go, like it's specific.
I was scared. I thought you were saying you overpay for.
No, I ain't overpaying. I ain't overpaying nothing. No, but for me, seriously, it's like, I think a lot of times we have this idea that like the politicians and government are supposed to be delivering things to us. And that's not how every community looks at it. They look at it like, I'm sending you out there to go get something done. And if you don't do it, just like Uber Eats, I'm gonna be in the app being like, wrong order. We have to reverse our relationship with politics to think about it where it's like, wait, hold on, no, you work for us. I'm sending you out there to do a job. If you don't do that job, I'll see you in 4 years. Instead, too many people feel like, well, what are they going to do for me? And it's like, it was backwards already. We should be telling them what we expect to happen. One thing about these plans that we're seeing, they're the direct result of a lot of Black folks talking to the administration about what we wanted to see happen.
Well,
and
a specific kind of Black folk, right? Like, so that's right. Like, I think the Jack and Jill Black people of the world have a bit more of a hand and a quicker reach to a politician, just because honestly, just using basic terms, they have the luxury to do that, right? There's a luxury in being able to go to a rally, being able to lobby, being able to be at these campaign dinners.
To understand the information.
To understand the information, because the everyday black man or the everyday black person gotta work. They gotta work. They can't. So it's like I think I agree with you. I just think there needs to be a bit of a clearer line from the politician to the people, right? And it shouldn't just only be every 3.5 right before a primary.
Totally agree. And I think politicians have a responsibility to make it plain, right? You have to talk to people where they're at, and like, you've got to make sure that it doesn't go away, right? Because that is a thing that happens in politics. People get excited.
Yeah, after you leave the polls, you take your picture, you don't hear from these people again until January. I ain't gonna say the date. It's triggering just to say the date. I don't say that January.
We know.
Let's see how this one goes.
We know.
So going to your point, I want to ask the question: how do we get on one accord, right? Because if this conversation is about us and our community, but we can't have actual conversation without substantiating points, right? So if I look at other races, right? If I look at the Asian community, if I look at the white community, every community they might have their inward fighting, but somebody somewhere, a majority of them get together and say, okay, everybody, we on the same page. This is what we're looking for. And we haven't had that in however many years we've been free in voting. There's always something that's separating us. There's a divider. So to even get to that point where we say, hey, politicians, this is what we want, how do we get everybody on the same page? I think everybody has a reason, and everybody has these big essays about what's driving us apart, but what is the thing that can bring us together in order to get to that point?
Yeah, well, I think we have to just focus on really the shared foundation of prosperity, right? Like, I don't necessarily think that we as Black people need to be on one accord, because we are such a diverse people, right? We're not a monolith. And
some of us like pumpkin pie.
No.
That's wild.
No.
Just talk about how we got to get together.
That's wild.
Yeah,
one thing, we can't even agree amongst five.
we didn't agree amongst two.
Because it's sweet potato over here. That's wild.
But I think like
we ain't never gonna come together.
It's people like him going to the polls. Hey, pumpkin pie.
Sweet potato over here. That's wild.
No.
That's wild times.
But when we talk about the economy, right? When I think about the job of a politician, and Ryan has brought up some good points, and BD is bringing up some good points about, like, do we go and give them the plan and say do this, or is it that we sort of send people out with the vision and say these are our expectations, and then we have a check-in and we have that ability to hire or fire you, right? I think truly what it's about is, at the end of the day, we as a people benefit when we can create opportunities for us to achieve happiness and achieve our dreams. And for some people, that's going to be, I want to start a business. For some people, that's going to be, I want to work this job and I want to rise up and I want to be a C-level executive. For some people, that's going to be, I want to be able to take care of my family and do these things. We all have different responsibilities, different dreams, but at the end of the day, what's important is, are we able to have money coming in that gives us breathing room? Are we able to buy the things that we need? Are we able to buy the things that we want? Are we able to create happiness? Are we able to export happiness to subsequent generations? And so when we look at, as a people, when we try to evaluate candidates and we advocate for certain candidates, it's whether they have the vision to understand, are they going to enact policies that are going to make those things happen for Black people, with recognition that there are historical and systemic barriers that prevent Black people from attaining those opportunities out the gate. And so you have to address those barriers to make sure that we have access to those opportunities.
I like this. I feel like we already did something. And if that one thing is publicly denouncing pumpkin pie, we did a lot. All right. So get a little more serious. This is like a little activity, all right? So just feel comfortable. I want y'all to raise your hand if you or anyone you've ever known has been unjustly in prison.
Unjustly?
Yeah, unjustly, yeah. nobody.
I know Ray Ray.
Even though
I know Ray Ray did.
Oh, Ray Ray did it.
I know he did.
He made that pumpkin pie. That's what Ray Ray did. I'm sorry.
I should have never
You raised 2 hands, so I'm guessing you have a lot of experience.
I'm
Give me-
from here.
Yeah, so just give me like one of the like most egregious or something that you just sticks out in your mind. Like it's like that's crazy.
Well, I just said a lot of people in LA went to jail for marijuana long terms.
The reason I asked that is because in this agenda, in this proposal, there is once again these are all first. For the first time, they're discussing the legalization of recreational marijuana. So what that means is obviously it'll be decriminalized. So we won't have a bunch of people going to jail over it. But also in this proposal, it also opens up the business opportunities for Black men to make money in that space, right? Where we now know over the last 5 years.
What the fuck, man? Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Right. We've been enterprising.
All right, here we go. Because y'all can sell weed now.
That is a way to tax it. Come on, bring the pumpkin pie gelato in here.
But to that point, and Mary, you were kind of getting at this, is like, that's wonderful, right? That's wonderful that you create this economic opportunity, but what about all the people for decades who got locked up for it?
Right.
How do you do right by them?
And that was, and that's one of my challenges to this, right?
You got to deal with that part of it.
Okay. And I feel like this gets done a lot, and you guys tell me if your experience has been different, but I feel like we'll get money thrown at us. And then when we get that money thrown at us, we'll forget about the decades of torn families and past and be like, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Like, what about, if this is decriminalized now, what about going to make it right? The people that's been sitting in them cells unjustly for decades.
They needed that to happen so they can get it right, so they can put a policy like this together and say, all right, get back to work, get on the farm. You ain't gonna own shit, you know what I mean? Yeah, get back. This has no reparations for the time served. You know what I mean? This is nothing going forward. No, like you're telling Black people, you can sell weed? Like,
Yeah.
that's not sustainable, bro.
Well, I think it's
That ain't that is not helping us in the economy.
Well, I think the idea is there's 2 parts. I believe obviously that is detrimental, but I think if we say, okay, let's stop the bleeding, right? Let's stop this going forward. Then you have these people who can, what used to be criminal can now be a business. Because I think about prohibition.
But that goes back to his point, and I know. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think about the Kennedy family who made a lot of their money during prohibition, moonshine, bootlegging, all that stuff. Now prohibition's over, and now they have all the resources from that time, and they go legit. And they put their sons in the White House all through Congress. We haven't had that opportunity, and they also weren't getting arrested when it was during bootlegging.
There were more millionaires probably selling weed and doing more for the community, right, than there are now. And it's all these cannabis dispensaries and shit like that. Like,
I think we got to push.
Water ourselves down.
I'm glad. I agree. You got to stop the bleeding at some point, but I'm deeply concerned about the amount. You can't get into the game, right? Like that. It's cost prohibitive, right? So we go back to this.
The way you said it was jarring.
I mean, it's
Put
like
me in the game, Ghost.
if you're looking at a community that has almost a negative net worth, which means that we don't have discretionary income. If the first money in a business normally is friends and family, and you don't have any friends and family to call because they don't have any money, it makes it hard to understand how we're actually going to be able to participate, because
it don't make sense.
So it says here, they will break down unjust legal barriers that hold Black men and other Americans back by legalizing marijuana nationally, working with Congress to ensure that the safe cultivation, distribution, and possession of recreational marijuana is the law of the land. And it also says that Vice President Harris will also fight to ensure that as the national cannabis industry takes shape, Black men who have for years been over-policed for marijuana use are able to access wealth and jobs in this new market. So hearing that.
No, I think it's a starting point, right? There has to be a starting point. One thing with this entire election that I think we have to make clear, I look at it like there being 2 doors, right? So there's this door, right, that's been open, we're having a discussion. I don't think the other door actually exists at all, right? So, I mean, maybe I could say people disagree with that and that's reasonable, but it's not to me. There's only one door. That's the starting point to have a conversation. Let's have it, right? I don't look at one white paper as the end all be all for our policy. It's just not gonna happen here. We're going to have to go sit in rooms. It's gonna be ugly. It's gonna take a long time.
The arduous stuff. It's gonna be the meticulous, the stuff that nobody.
People think.
How many dispensaries are there? You live here.
Yes.
How many dispensaries are there?
I'm in New York.
How many?
There's every block.
Oh my God! How many dispensaries in New York? All right, so
Just
listen.
by my crib, there's at least 15.
Yeah,
But
remember, they decriminalized this
dispensaries.
shit already and gave everybody what? Hey, if you're a former person, you can sign up for a grant, either cultivation, either small business, either supply. So people already got these licenses, right? The problem is, okay, I didn't apply for all this license. I want to go stand up a cannabis shop. I don't have any financing.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I
That's
mean?
where
And
that's
so
where
that
we
goes,
have to push.
That goes back to what you keep saying. It's like, all right, now it's the Wild Wild West for 96 more people to be individually owned and operated, right? And you need the system. So all what's happening here in LA is now people are saying, okay, all these people got all these licenses and failed. Let me bring a private equity firm in. And now, like, they know how to make money off of that by rolling 20, 30 of them up. And now there's a business. Those dudes are out.
I want to make two points to kind of bring all this together. One is Ryan, I think you're right. This is a starting point. And it just emphasizes the need for a comprehensive plan that not only creates the opportunity, but also addresses the systemic barriers some of which we talked about, which is the fact that there is not Black capital to lean on to invest in people to open up cannabis shops. The fact that there are already these licenses and people who are already entrenched in the space, so there's so much competition. The fact that people who were previously convicted have cannabis convictions, some of whom are felons that can't vote. How do you address those sorts of things, right? That's you gotta address those things.
And
so I would say
they gotta come with a better
I would say
plan.
I think this is an opportunity, starting point. If I were advising the vice president and her campaign, I would encourage them to dig deeper and look at those issues. And to her credit, like, some of those are addressed in there, but we can go really, really deep on it. The second point, Ryan, which I'm glad you said, is that my biggest challenge in talking to a lot of people who are not super engaged in politics, which is fine. Like, I'm a political junkie. Like, I'm on Twitter talking policy, blah, blah, all of this, right? Right. I got the pundit jacket on, right? And not everybody's gonna be like that.
It's like when you see him in the box, you're like, oh, he's good.
But what I would hope voters understand is that voting is, for better or worse, a binary choice.
Yes, sir.
Even if you choose not to vote. And politicians and political progress is incremental. No politician, you can't, I hate the question, am I better off 4 years ago? Did this person solve all of my problems? No, it's never going to happen. When you look at a candidate or two candidates, you have to make a decision to say, is this person, one, do they have a vision that is going to move in the direction that I want to go in? Are they going to move the ball down the field? They're not going to
It's
throw
not a
for a
touchdown,
touchdown.
but
Right?
we're gonna.
Are they going to get 3 yards? So we put ourselves in a position to get a first down. That's the first thing. And then
Really good.
number
That's
two,
really good.
I know sports.
number two, and I think that this is, this is kind of all topic, but I look at divisive issues where, things that are happening in the Middle East or foreign policy things where people are like, I feel very, very strongly about this thing, or I feel very, very strongly about this other thing. You have to look at a candidate and say, are they amenable to pressure, to protesting, and to advocacy? You have in this election, and we have proof.
I hope that when the editing happens, they like slow that down.
But
because you just went for 30.
Let me,
Like, you just set a bar.
Let him cook.
You have to look at a candidate and not say, do they have a position that is perfectly aligned with mine? But are they at a starting point where we can get some yards and move down the field? But also, if I do the work, if I lobby, if I advocate, if I call my congressperson, if I sign petitions, if I do this work, are they at least going to hear me? We know for a fact that there's a candidate in this race who won't.
We know
Who won't?
It is proven.
If you care about certain issues and you're saying, well, the vice president isn't perfect on this, and her campaign, I don't like their answer on it. Well, have they at least changed some of the rhetoric to mirror some of the language you're using? Are they at least open to having certain discussions because you know the other side is not?
You're smoking right now. You're on fire, but even in that, I think we. Yeah,
You got
double him, please.
Foul him. Set him on the 20. I gotta go full. We gotta go full.
He's finishing with
TV turned out.
Remember what he said?
We gotta call timeout.
Call him off.
Wait, pumpkin pie.
I'm like, now I understand.
Time out on my man.
I think one thing you said can be like broken down to something simple. We're going to legalize marijuana, and somebody say we're going to increase stop and frisk, right? Legalizing marijuana doesn't save everybody. It doesn't prevent everything, but we know stop and frisk. They're gonna come into our neighborhood, right? I remember, and this is a quick story. This is not to flex. This is just the truth. I remember when I lived in Calabasas for 6 months during the pandemic. It was great rates. I didn't have the bread like that. It was just pandemic pricing. I remember being inside those gates. I said, I didn't see a police car in that neighborhood one time. Right. 6 months. No helicopter one time. You think the people in there were not committing crimes? Not doing drugs?
Definitely.
They doing drugs. Yeah, they doing stuff. But nobody's coming into police. Yeah. Right? You come to a different part of LA, you see police cars. In my other neighborhood, not even the part they put on the news. I'm talking about when I lived in Reseda. The police are here. Helicopters are around. If the same amount of drugs or crime are being done, but the police are coming around and then they're intentionally looking for people like us, they gonna make some crimes up, right? So I think that's the incremental progress. It's like, it's one of these people gonna look out for me to the best of their ability that they can do. And we know Congress and stuff like that, like President tries stuff, then Congress can decide and the Senate, all that type of stuff. And there's one person gonna say, stop and frisk. Let's increase police or give police immunity. Give police immunity. Well, who is that gonna harm? That's gonna, over-index harm people like us. So I think that's where we often feel like there's no right answer, but if it's a game of field position, this is 30 yards gain versus a 3 and out.
I do want to
There's
say
definitely a wrong answer.
to the immaculate point you made, there is a double-edged sword, right? Because to that, yes, we know there's a candidate that is going to say the wrong thing, but to him and to other disenfranchised people that don't realize they're disenfranchised, they're gonna see that as, that's him being real.
Yeah.
Because for so long, we have been cool.
Yeah.
Right? The other side has been cool. And then we've said the right thing and we've been malleable under pressure, but then there's no change on the other side. Yeah. So you gave me the right answer.
Yeah.
I feel good about the answer you gave me. 10 years later, I felt good about the answer you gave me. So there's a blending that has to come with it that says, okay, we have to say the right thing and we have to show them that we have a policy that wants to go downfield. Yeah. But you also have to put the plays, you gotta call the plays. It's gonna be uncomfortable.
You gotta be active.
But you gotta call the plays.
I wanna say one more thing real quick and I'm gonna let you go, Ryan. I think a lot of times we as people decide, well, I just ain't gonna vote, as if that's not a hopeful expectation of the people working against us. Absolutely. Like whether you vote for the person you want to or don't vote, there's still, if we can get you to just be apathetic, that's great. Because if I need 10 votes and you just don't vote, they're counting, well, then this group ain't gonna vote at all. Well, then if I know my group is going to vote, you win. The thing the only thing more dangerous than fervor is apathy. Yeah. If you don't care at all, you're not informed, indifference is way more detrimental than anger.
There's more people who don't care.
Absolutely.
We got to talk to them.
Because the information.
Because they feel like it don't edit.
I don't know if they don't care as much as they don't know.
No, I think people don't care.
No, people don't care. Like if you look at social media and media, it's like, man, it's like watching a reality TV show. Yeah. So like I'm not getting understandings of how politics works in sports. And you're like, that's me. They just getting more bullshit. I'm like, oh, Quavo over here. Yeah. You know what I mean? And and what's his name? The football player. AB over here. Yeah. Right? So everything is like, if I'm somebody who's trying to get a better understanding, and social media is my outlet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I go to the news and it's the same bullshit. Like, bro, it's like, I don't know what to do at this
and when
point.
you feel like you don't know what to do, it's easy to just say, I'm not going to do
I'm
I'm going to get on this game. That's what I know I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I know I'm about to get 30.
I think it's our responsibility at that point, though, to show folks, even if you don't do politics, politics is doing you.
Man.
All the time. It doesn't matter what we're talking about.
Y'all like talk before?
That's my guy, bro.
It's the glasses jacket.
We ain't tried to be comfortable.
They said, man, I'm getting glasses and jacket. I'm going to come here.
Ain't they red and blue like Ken White?
For the CNN.
This a unified ticket right here, boy.
I see it. I don't know about everybody, but I'm voting for y'all. If y'all run, I'm voting for y'all.
But it's important, bro. Like, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. We could point at any object, every single thing, politics is involved.
Everything.
How that book got here, how it was taxed, who made all of that, that's political decisions, right? So we have to explain that to people. You don't exist in a world where politics is not influencing every single interaction that you're having.
It's their worst product.
Like every single interaction. So you should get in the game. And then I like this football analogy because I think it's a good way to explain, if you play in football, you can't throw a Hail Mary on every play, right? Like, you're just trying to get a first down.
Yeah.
And like, we can critique that, but that's how the game is played.
Yeah.
It is played inch by inch, and right now, like, we have an opportunity to go get a first down. And like, we
got to know the plays, though. We got to know, like, everybody has to be clued in on the plays. It can't just be y'all two. You know what I mean? Because I don't know the play.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
That's the part where
I agree with you.
And there's no
those with it gotta be able to come
and there's
down.
there's not a community element, right, of you guys, you know what I mean, leading the charge where we can be like, oh, hell yeah, let me show up more. So now, you know, the comedy aspect, it improves it improves everybody reading.
I feel you, but like, in this election, in other elections, there are some different dynamics. This election is very clear. We have an opportunity to have a conversation with Vice President Harris when she's the president. She's writing policy. She's like signaling to us that there are conversations she wants to engage in. We don't have another signal being sent to us from anything connected to Trump. We just have to make that plain for folks, right? So I hear you. There are people out there like, I like that energy. But when you ask them, one, if your vote doesn't matter, why are they working so hard to make sure that you don't vote? That's half of Trump's strategy. He actually doesn't need people to vote for him. He just needs people
Not to vote.
just to sit at home.
Side,
So why does he want that to happen? One, and two, has he ever put a policy proposal on the table?
He put that 1200 still me in my pocket.
See, like even there we gotta explain how.
We gotta say this. During Black Lives Matter, right? A lot of black VCs got funded. A lot of black companies got funded, right? There was a lot of protests. There was a lot of unrest, and there was some money.
Oh yeah. Sorry, black.
When does that ever happen?
Yeah. So,
when does that ever happen?
But that was because Congress, right? Like, we gotta explain.
But that's because we got tired and said, "Fuck this, we're gonna tear this shit up."
But Congress,
don't give us some money.
Donald Trump at no point was behind any of what was just mentioned. That was Congress, right? So yes, he put his name on the check,
sure.
but like, that was Congress.
I do think that speaks to.
But that's also like
Baron, but
the
this
way
thing-
I look at it is, okay, this dude is so this, right? That it made us so that, right? That we finally had enough and we were rallying, and now they like, oh shit, here they come.
So I think
So we should be doing that all the time.
This speaks to your point, Baron, which I think is important. And if Kamala Harris is elected president, going forward, it's a question about how do you engage voters who are not clued in all the time, right? And so, Baron, I think the point that you were making is you got to meet people where they are. Like, yes, you can have celebrity engagement and say, oh, we're going to have Baron Davis come to a rally. But it's one thing to have a celebrity show up and throw a concert or tell jokes. It's another to have them engage people in terms that they understand, right? If you're going to work with athletes, talk to the athletes in terms that they understand. Give them the football analogy. Give them the basketball analogy.
Or make sure if they're advocating for you that they know what the fuck your policy is.
You gotta make,
you know
you
what I
gotta
mean?
make
It ain't a picture. You know what I mean? It's like you got people rallying for you because you think that all this shit is marketing, bro.
It is.
All this shit is a fucking marketing game and a marketing trick. If you really care about a celebrity, find a celebrity who know what the fuck they talking about, or can explain to other celebrities, this is how politics works for acting. This is the comedic version. This is how it works in sports. But we getting people just because of their social media numbers and be like, okay, vote for me because I'm cool because I stand that. You can't do that no more, bro.
I want to talk about another, for lack of a better term, another hot button issue that's going on, which is playing big and has been playing big for a while, but especially now, the art of or the tale of women's rights. Even though this conversation is amongst Black men and it's our time to be heard, I don't think we can properly ever discuss our issues without discussing the issues of the very women we share homes with, whether they're our wives, our daughters, our sisters. So in that, where do you guys kind of stand on that?
Yeah, women's issues are my issues, right? And I just want to say one thing, and I know people mean well when they do it, but I just want to say that I care about women and women's issues because they're women's issues. It doesn't matter that I got 8 sisters. It doesn't matter that I got a wife. It doesn't matter that I got a daughter. It doesn't matter. My proximity to women does not matter. Am I caring about their issues? I care about their issues because they are women and women are important and women deserve great things, right? And so when we think about these issues, they are just important because if it can happen to women, it can happen to anybody. Now, I have experience in some of these things. My wife, when my daughter was born, it was a high-risk pregnancy.
Yeah.
And just thinking about the care that we needed, and if certain decisions couldn't be made because the doctors had to go check with legal and say, do we have a risk of being sued? And then my wife could literally die trying to give birth. You think about the statistics about Black maternal health and Black maternal mortality, they're staggering.
It's
right?
disgusting.
And then it also ties into the economics of it all. If you limit the ability for women to have access to necessary care or to make certain decisions, and you say, well, we pushed it to the states, but I happen to live in a state that they've made decisions that don't allow me to do these things, and I've got to figure out how I'm going to travel to another state to do that. I mean, that's just preposterous.
I think that is so crazy.
Insane.
Leaving it to a state when my state may be red and I don't agree with nothing red. You get what I'm saying? So I think that is absolutely insane.
It's absolutely insane, and it does not happen to men, right? Like the decisions that we can make, and it's not, and we're focused on abortion rights or reproductive freedom, but it's also in the pay disparity that women still to this day have to deal with. There are so many issues where to be a woman, you've already got hurdles. To be a Black person, you've already got hurdles. If you can buy that, if you are a Black woman, imagine the hurdles. If you are a Black queer woman, imagine the hurdles. And so, these issues are just so important, not because of our proximity to anybody in these identities, but because no one in society should have to deal with those things. Again, my approach to this is always, what if I were in that position? I may not be in that position now, but I've got to make decisions and have advocacy, assuming that I could be in that position, or I could have been in that position.
I think that's extremely important, especially as Black men. I think advocacy is not something we can be passive about. Right, and that's not me saying I don't think everybody has to pick up every mantle, but you got to pick up a mantle, right? Like I get it, we're downtrodden to the Black men, but we got to look out for somebody other than self, right?
That should be the number one thing. Yeah. Like they are the cornerstones of this earth.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they've been marginalized, Black women, and then women in general. You know what I mean? When you think about like men aren't really hiring, you know what I mean? Like you look at the anxiety of just the state of where we at with our kids and just, mental health issues. It's like we're not taking care of the women. Yeah. You know what I mean? And our leadership, if you look over the history of time, it always revolves around when they are in power, when they do have power, things start to change. And so I'm a huge advocate and investor in women and women in business. And the goal is like, they're the ones that's gonna help us crystallize. We can't do it. Not that we can't do it. It's just hard because so many
I think
alphas.
sometimes
and
I think you just can't do it. Like you need someone else.
We are in a competitive landscape. They're not. They're fighting to like change shit. And so it's important for us to amplify them and make sure that their issues are getting addressed, because at that point, they're gonna look naturally, you know what I mean? They're gonna be looking out for us and allow us to like mobilize without the angst and anxiety, because if they got pressures and shit like that to fight, it ain't gonna be good for man or woman, you know what I mean?
Right.
I had a conversation recently with a woman that I really respect, and she was like, look, Black women have always prioritized our Blackness before being a woman. Yeah. And I had heard versions of that, right, in more academic settings, right? But just to have someone that I respect really sit down and be like, in this season, though, I really need y'all to prioritize what's on the table for us as women, right? Understanding that, like, and it's the truth, Black women have shown up for us.
Every day,
all day, every day, super consistently.
At the expense of themselves.
And that's what she was saying to me. She was like, we have prioritized Blackness over the issues that are important to us as women. Fundamentally, to me, no one should be telling women what to do with their bodies. And if you track back to the beginning of our conversation when we were talking about economics, the undertone of that conversation is about choice and freedom and having an opportunity to be able to do what we want to do. So I would encourage any Black man that sits on the opposite side of this conversation to think about what's important to you when we're having that discussion, and why are those same values not important when we start talking about reproductive rights. To me, if you're consistent, you should be in a position to want to be supportive of what we're hearing from the women that are in our lives. I think the thing that when we start talking about this, and keep me honest here, our companies, our lives, our families are better when we do that. Because I think a lot of times it's talked about like it's philanthropy, like, oh man, we're supporting Black women.
There's not a track record.
Like most of my team are Black women.
Black women are running the set right now.
We are a better company.
Y'all don't come on this side. Y'all been behind the cameras too long.
But like, showing me stuff. I'm like, do you want to do it?
But I will say, shout out to Blavity.
Shout out to Blavity, for real.
Blavity, like that's.
But let it not be lost. Blavity, this is a tough business. Media, Black media is a tough business. Blavity and Afrotech and everything that we do only happens because we have Morgan, a Black woman to see that, because so much of our leadership are women, right? And I always say that is why we've been able to sustain and grow, is because women don't just have a seat at the table. Like, women are the table. Women set the agenda.
Also, yes to everything. This is not in juxtaposition of what y'all saying. But also, if they weren't, right? Like, just say we were platforming them and uplifting them and they was fucking up. There is 1 million years of white men fucking up. And they somewhat kind of figured out a way to get it right. So why not even the playing field?
I want to say something real quick, just a perfect example to that point. Just in Hollywood and LA, BD got a studio, he hiring Black people, you can see it. Remember, I had an employee that I was working with, and I was like, you make sure that when it's my set, I want to see Black people in front and behind the camera, right? It's a Black dude that I was working with. He was like, well, how do I know they're right for the job, right? Like, let me see their resume. I was like, that's what white people do. That's how they exclude Black people, is by saying they not right for the job. Let me see their resume. If you've been systematically excluded from this space, you won't have, and then they say, well, let's just look resumes and make it even. You won't have the same resume. And to your point, I think one of your points, when white men mess up in this city, you think they don't be on set still?
They get another chance.
Their homeboy gonna still hire them over and over.
Not only did that happen,
But that's how Hollywood works.
and somebody else fixes it.
Absolutely.
Somebody else says, oh, no.
Now he the head of the studio.
If you can stay,
He shouldn't have been here.
He should have been PA. How you run the studio?
He shouldn't be a PA. He's meant for the big office.
It's gonna be like, Tom just had
Go
a bad
get the
day.
budget.
Exactly. But
had a
Black
bad
women,
day.
they make a mistake, or Black people, they're done.
So I will say that as men, we have two responsibilities when it comes to advocating for women. One is, Kev, you kind of alluded to this, like, how do we lean in our personal lives and our professional lives to make sure that we are giving access, that we are giving respect, and we are giving reverence to the women in hiring them for jobs and putting them in positions of power and crafting policies in our workplace to make sure that they can do and receive the support to do the things that they need to do. The second thing is that I think that we have to advocate for policies that make it easier for women to thrive, that reduce and ease the burden that disproportionately falls on women on average. And, I am encouraged that the vice president has in her plan, she calls it the care economy. Yep. Things like increasing the child tax credit. I remember a couple years ago, Kev, you joked about the stimulus checks that went out. But one of the things that, Vice President Harris and President Biden did at the beginning of their administration in the American Rescue Plan is that they not only increased the child tax credit, but they sent it out in monthly allotments of about $500 or so per family, right? Yep. And there were two things that did. One, for middle-class people, is that it gave them a little extra cushion. It gave people the ability to say, when Kev's tickets are $150, maybe we can hire that sitter and we can go to the show. But more importantly, it reduced childhood poverty by half. By half.
They cut it in half.
Cut it in half. And so it's as men, as much as we push for these things that we talked about, we have to make sure that we're also, holding candidates and campaigns accountable to say, what are you going to do to make it easier for families? Because the work of building and sustaining a family disproportionately too often falls on women. And if we care about women, we have to have policies that address that and make it easier for women to thrive.
Listen, this has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to, have such an important, impactful conversation on something so impactful. Obviously, BD, we appreciate you opening the doors. We appreciate Blavity, making this possible. Before we get out of here, like I said, like I've been saying all day, like we've all said, this is an extremely important election, if not the most important of our lifetime. Final thoughts. What are you not seeing? What do you want to see more of? Real quick.
What I'm seeing that I do like is things like this, right? This conversation is just a microcosm of a lot of conversations that are happening on social media and conversation. I think whether we agree or not is not as important as whether we're having the conversation or not. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, a good amount of our community understands the weight of this election, the weight of every election, and we're having the tough conversations with each other, right? We're lending our voice in this moment and in our own families, in our circles, in our communities, on social media. And there's people who are watching quietly. They might not say, oh, okay, but like there's nuggets that I've gleaned from each one of us here. Same thing with on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok from people that are older than me and younger than me. Some of them kids on TikTok, put your uncle through some stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important to have these conversations, then move to activation, and then continue to what BD's point was, and your point about politician is, here's your plan. Now, if you get in office, let's see what you do that you said you were gonna do, and hold your feet to the fire. But we got to get you in office first.
Kev, to your point, two things. One, I'm encouraged by is the fact that in this election, what's different from any election is that the majority of the discourse where the candidates are talking about their positions, talking about their plans, are happening on non-traditional media platforms. Yeah. And the mainstream media is upset about it, but you see both candidates going on podcasts, right? Going to talk to people who are not, news anchors who have been there doing the job for 20 or 30 years. And I think that's so important, because BD alluded to this earlier. You've got to meet people where they are, and you've got to talk to them in a way where they understand it, right? You've got to go to the platforms where they are.
Video of and balloon pop.
The balloon pop, which is it's a political correct. That was good. Again, and I think that stuff is important. And I do hope that that continues with the next administration. One thing that I want to see more of, and I think is really, really important, there are some big issues that impact the future that we need to talk more about. One specifically, AI, right? And we had this conversation about cannabis and how, you want to legalize it now, but we're late to the party. AI is one of those things where we have the opportunity to allow Black people and historically disenfranchised groups of people who have not had access or get access too late to get in on the ground floor to not only make sure that these new technologies and these new innovations don't harm us, but make sure that we can participate in the economic opportunity. So I do hope that we can have those conversations and that the next administration really prioritizes those things, because it's important for us as a country to maintain our competitive edge, but it's important for us as a people in our future.
And my brother just went to where I was about to go to. I think that we're like legitimately in a period where there's a reshuffling of the deck, or at least a possibility that the deck can be reshuffled. It's things like AI, right? When you look at all of the industries where they're talking about where there's going to be growth, we're at the still beginning stages of being able to get involved. Right, a ton of stuff going on in energy and clean tech, right? So I'm excited that we have a seat at the table and we'll be able to put people on where there's going to be just like massive growth.
Yeah.
I'm also excited that if we can get Vice President Harris in office, that we have an opportunity to have a conversation that's meaningful with a black woman. And as we discussed earlier, black women been running this whole thing. Yeah, no, like being able to rely on someone that has had a lived experience that resonates with our lives is an advantage that we've never had before, right? So there are a lot of things that we should be concerned about, and there are a lot of big problems out there. But at the end of the day, I'm optimistic, right? I think that we're going to be able to meaningfully be able to move the ball down the field. And this, we need to in this window, right? Because if we go the opposite way, we can't afford to take a step back.
For me, I want the Black American agenda to be set by the people who matter. So when there is policy, we go back and say, oh, that's great, but this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Right? And then I also feel like what we do need to do more is understand where we are. Like, who are the VCs? Who are the entrepreneurs? Who are the talent, right? This whole, everything that I've been hearing us say is like, them. I don't really give a fuck about them. I care about how do we mobilize our community? Who are the people that can put money into the pot, right? Who are the people that can grow the pot? Who are the people we need to put money into? And so our agenda needs to be an American agenda, right? We need to say we are American, right? We are the cornerstones of this country, and we know who we are. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a list of black people or a database or a CRM of black people on all levels so we cannot be, just judged as one. You feel what I'm saying? Like, black men, you can't just have a policy and say, oh, that's all black men. Like, this guy don't smoke no weed.
Well, how you know?
I was trying to get you along. Like, this man ain't gonna open no dispensary unless it's at a church. Unless it's in the back of the church. Holy weed. Holy weed ministries.
Body buzz.
But if we can get together and create this agenda and be about us and be about amplifying the people and find each other, then any policy, right, and anybody that's willing to hear us, now we have a true plan, right? And everybody is a part of the plan and not feeling like they're alienated.
I agree 1,000%. Lastly, I knew what you said. I knew that was gonna come up. I was prepared for it. I knew people were gonna ask, I don't like what Harris done. What has she done so far? I just want to give people just a few quick things that's been on my top of mind since I knew we was having this conversation. So this is just what the Vice President and Biden have done, specifically also for black men and black people in America. So first and foremost, the advance of effective and accountable policing. So what does that mean? That means the police in your neighborhood just don't get to do what they want without any accountability, right? Then they funded police and promoted effective prosecution, which means if you get caught as a police officer doing wrong by these people, you will be prosecuted. And we know what the other side is trying to do to offset that, given immunity. They invested in crime prevention. I think that is the single most important thing to someone like me who is, I'm not so successful that I'm completely out of the hood. I see what's going on. I think that is the most effective thing right there, because what that means is typically in neighborhoods, police don't prevent crime. Right. They show up after the fact, right? So actual crime prevention goes into many things, whether it's putting things back in the community for the youth, to deter some of that youth crime offensive, just actually having people, communities that are safer just in proxy. Like, you don't have to worry about this thing. there's a bunch more, but I think those were the 3 most important that if anybody watching at home is like, you know, like you said, Kevin, what has she done? She's been in office for it. Go look that up. That's what has already been done. And I think putting her in office with her running the ship, it only has a chance to get better. And like you guys made the correlation earlier, move the ball further down the field. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's time. KevOnStage, you know what you do. Please tell the people what it is you do, they support.
Ryan of the Gathering Spot.
I'm Jeff Nelson, the COO and co-founder of Blavity.
You know.
Baron Davis, Big Summits, TeamBig.io.
I'm Mouse Jones. This has been an amazing conversation, Blavity. We appreciate this opportunity. Morgan, shout out to you.
Shout out to Blavity, Morgan.
And get out to those polls, man. Get out to them polls. Vote, vote, vote. Peace.
Peace.